welcome to week 3 of Meals with Jesus. If this is the first one that you're listening to, you have missed a couple, but it's okay. You can go back and watch last week's one where we had a look at Simon and the woman who anointed Jesus' feet. And week 1 was in person where we gathered and we had a look at Levi. This week we are looking at Luke 9 verses 10 to 17. And it is the feeding of the 5,000. The point of this series is for us to have a look at who Jesus had meals with, who he chose to spend his time with, eating with, and what those choices mean for us now, who he chose to include, who he chose to see as significant and worth spending his time with, who he saw as valuable, and why that matters for us now as followers of Jesus. So this week, like I said, it is the feeding of the 5,000. So the first 2 weeks, Levi and Simon and the woman who anointed Jesus' feet, Jesus was a guest when he ate with them. This time, Jesus is the host, I suppose. So it is no surprise that there are not loads of VIPs and celebrities and significant, well thought of people in the community, but it very much is everyone is welcome. And that's no surprise when we know Jesus and his character and how he treated people and, you know, his message of inclusion. It's no surprise that everyone is welcome when we're looking at Jesus hosting all these people and wanting to eat with them. And I feel at the very heart of this story is us realising that Jesus is God. And I kind of touch on that a little bit today. And how we know that. So if you don't know the story, it is the one that you may remember from Sunday school or kids' church or RE lessons, with the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. So now I've said that, you're probably like, got ya, I'm with you, I know where you're at. But if you don't know, we're in Luke 9, 10 to 17. So just give it a quick read. I never read them out in these because I want it to be short enough that you can just listen to it kind of on your way to work or when you've got a gap here and there. And so reading the verses out obviously takes a chunk of time, but please do read it in your own time. Don't think I'm kind of not reading it. I'm assuming you'll read it when you can get a chance to. So yeah, that's where we're at. Everyone's welcome. And obviously Jesus did the impossible and he fed a lot of people with not very much resource. And so that is what I'm saying when I say that it helps us to realise that Jesus is God, because he has done the impossible and he has done something that only God could do. And, you know, I would imagine as a disciple, it may have been slightly overwhelming when Jesus said, feed them. And you're thinking, we're in the middle of nowhere and there's 5,000 people here with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. No, actually, Jesus, I don't really want to try and do that. What are you expecting me to do? You know, walk to the nearest town and buy enough for 5,000 people? I'd have been a bit stressed, actually, maybe a bit overwhelmed, and I'm assuming they felt the same. That's kind of an impossible ask from people, isn't it? However, that is what Jesus asked them to do, feed them. And that is exactly what Jesus did. And not only did they not just get a crumb, because let's be honest, if we're actually thinking about it happening to us right now, you've got to share that little food between 5,000 people, you would be thinking, you're going to have a crumb each, hold your hand out as a little crumb, and you can't have fish and bread, you can only have fish or bread because there's only enough for a crumb each. That's stressful. But that's not what happened. They didn't just get a crumb. They had enough for everybody to have as much as they needed, and there was some left over. 12 baskets left over. which is incredible. It's impossible. It's hard to get your head around. Again, I'm not going to go into if you think it happened miraculously, or another theory I've read is that as people began to share the food out, other people had brought like their own picnics and then shared with other people around them. Either way, whichever option that you think happened, it still demonstrates the same point of Jesus's generosity and inclusion for everyone, and that generosity was contagious if everyone unpacked their own little packed lunch, and if it was miraculous and he fed them all with just that little food. Incredible. That is a miracle. So both ways, I still see it as Jesus being God and doing the impossible with a huge group of people and very little resource. And people were hungry, and I'm not always very nice when I'm hungry, so they may have been impatient. There's children there as well, so I think it's an incredible thing that happened, and I think it shows the heart of God, the generous heart of God, and it reflects that within the story to not only satisfy the need of each person, but to give them more than they wanted so that there was something left over. I don't know about you, but if you go out for dinner with someone and they say, oh, it's my treat, like I'm paying, number one, that's actually very difficult for me to accept that. I really struggle with that. And number two, if I do accept that and let them pay, I'm choosing the cheapest thing on the menu. I am not going to abuse this generosity. Do you know what I mean? And in the same way, they didn't just eat a crumb. They had more than enough. They had enough to satisfy them. They ate well. Jesus wasn't stingy. They ate well, and there was stuff left over. So they were hungry. They had a need that Jesus satisfied. He met that need, as God does for us in our lives now. And, often I'm sure you've maybe heard people say that we're always looking for more. We're never satisfied. We're of a generation and a time where we have instant satisfaction. iPads, technology, click and collect thing. Like everything is just instant. We want something, we get it. We can pay on finance. We can just have everything we want whenever we want it. And yet we are not deeply satisfied. We think we want more money and more power and more things and possessions. And actually, what I think we need, what I would say we all need deep within us, is Jesus and his radical love and forgiveness and acceptance, to be seen and to be included and valued just for who we are, not for what we can offer, not for what we can give, not for what we can, not for how often we can come on a Sunday, not for how often we can volunteer on the tea rota or give our money to whatever. It's not about that. It's Jesus sees us and values us and just for who we are, and that is the only thing that will completely satisfy us. And it's not temporary, and it's not something that will be taken away, but it is life changing, and it is something that you just cannot get your head around sometimes. And I think the point of this week, and why I thought it would be great for us to think about this week in the Meals with Jesus series, is for us to think about how that life-changing relationship with Jesus, knowledge of who Jesus is, and how that's changed us, how can that overflow from us from a place of gratitude and generosity into our community and into our families and friends' lives? How can that overflow into all of the places where God has put us? And can we think about maybe even You know, like I've just said, I find it hard to accept it if someone else is going to offer to pay for a coffee for me. Can we humble ourselves enough, make ourselves uncomfortable enough to maybe tell other people what needs we need, you know, have and need meeting? That could be practical, or it could be a prayer request. Is there something I need practical help with? Do I need someone to come and help me weed my garden, or change a tyre, or pay for food shopping one week, or whatever it might look like for you? Or do I need somebody to spiritually meet a need within me, to pray with me, to point me to Jesus? And can we ask for help? Can we ask for other people to help us to meet that need? And in the same way, you know what's coming. Is there a way that we can do it for others? Has someone reached out to us and asked for help, and we've gone, I really don't have time this week, I really don't want to have to do that on my way home from work. No, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Is there a way that we could help somebody else and meet their need? Is there a way that we could pray for somebody else when they've asked us to, and actually do it, and not just say, yeah, I'm praying for you, and then we sort of forget about it until we see that person again and we're like, I'm so sorry, better remember to pray for them. Can we actually commit to praying for someone every day, and meet that need with them? You know, God has empowered us. I'm a huge advocate for this, that I believe that God has empowered us to think for ourselves, and to He's created us human to do God's work on earth, so we can physically do things and think for ourselves and help people out. We don't need to wait for someone else to do it. You know, Jesus didn't go, these people are hungry, I am going to sit and do nothing about it and just, you know, keep talking about these people need feeding, and isn't there a charity that can help them, or isn't there, you know, why isn't God answering their prayers, they're really hungry. Like, Jesus fed them. And in the same way, I believe that we can do that where we are. So we can look like Jesus to other people, and we can feed the 5,000, or whatever it is that we think God is asking us to do, or people are asking for help with. So that is this week's kind of reflection and thing to think about, and to do this week in your community where God has placed you. Thank you. I will pray, and then I will hopefully see you tune in again next week. God, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for your generosity and your kindness. Thank you for giving us access to learn about who Jesus was, what he did, how he blessed people, how he met practical needs. God, help us to learn from that and to look like Jesus in our communities. Help us to humble ourselves sometimes, to ask for help when we need it to. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks so much, and hopefully tune in next week. Bye.